My mom stole my $20,000 college fund for my cousin's reckless mess. Heartbroken, I outsmarted her and won justice. You're being selfish, Alex. Family comes first. My mom's words hit me like a punch to the gut, echoing in my head as I stared at the bank statement showing my college fund. $20,000. Gone. I was 19, a freshman scraping by, and that money was my lifeline for tuition, books, and a shot at a future without drowning in debt. But Mom had drained it to bail out my cousin Jonathan, who'd crashed his car while drunk and racked up fines and legal fees. Selfish? Me? I could barely breathe as I stood in our cramped living room, the weight of her accusation crushing me. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, betrayal, and a family that seemed to value Jonathan's chaos over my dreams. My name's Alex, and I'm a college student working part-time at a coffee shop while studying computer science. I'm not perfect. I can be stubborn and I overthink things, but I've always tried to do right by my family. I grew up in a modest house with my mom, dad, and younger sister Layla, who's 16 and glued to her phone half the time. Mom's the kind of person who'd give her last dollar to help someone, even if it meant we went without. She's warm but impulsive, and her soft spot for Jonathan has always been a sore point. Dad's quieter, a mechanic who avoids conflict and lets Mom call the shots. Then there's Jonathan, my 23-year-old cousin, who's charming when he wants to be but reckless to a fault. He's been in and out of trouble since high school, petty theft, DUIs, you name it. Everyone calls him troubled, but I call it selfish. He's the kind of guy who'd borrow your car, crash it, and then ask for gas money. The trouble started a few months ago when Jonathan got arrested again. He'd been drinking at a bar, got behind the wheel, and smashed into a parked car. No one was hurt, thank God, but the damage was done. A totaled car, a DUI charge, and a mountain of fines. His mom, my aunt, couldn't afford to help, so he turned to my mom, his favorite savior. I didn't know the details at first, just that Mom was stressed, making hushed phone calls and dodging my questions. I was busy with midterms and my barista job, so I didn't press her. Big mistake. One evening, I came home from a late shift, exhausted and smelling like espresso, to find Mom and Dad at the kitchen table. Layla was there too, scrolling on her phone, oblivious to the tension. I grabbed a soda from the fridge and asked, "Everything okay?" Mom hesitated, then slid a bank statement across the table. My college fund, the one my parents had been saving for years, was nearly empty. "I had to help Jonathan," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "He was going to jail, Alex. I couldn't let that happen." I felt my stomach drop. "You used my money? $20,000? Mom, that was for school." My voice cracked, and I could feel my face getting hot. Dad looked away, fidgeting with his coffee mug, while Layla finally glanced up, wide-eyed. Mom's eyes narrowed. "Alex, he's family. He made a mistake. You're young, you'll figure out school. Jonathan needed help now." "A mistake?" I snapped. "He's been making mistakes for years. Why is it always my future that gets screwed over for him?" That's when she called me selfish, and it stung worse than anything. I stormed out, slamming the door, and spent the night at my friend Larry's place, replaying her words. Selfish. Was I? All I wanted was a fair shot at the life I'd been working for. A few days after that first fight with Mom, I found myself spiraling. I'd always been the responsible kid, the one who got good grades, worked weekends, and never asked for much. Growing up, I'd watched my parents struggle to pay bills, especially after Dad's shop slowed down during the recession. That college fund wasn't just money. It was years of their sacrifices, late-night shifts, and skipped vacations. I remembered being 12, overhearing Mom cry about not being able to afford Layla's braces, and promising myself I'd never be a burden. Now, it felt like all that effort, mine and theirs, had been tossed out for Jonathan's latest mess. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was personal, like my whole childhood of trying to make them proud meant nothing. I needed to clear my head, so I called Larry, my best friend since high school. He's 20, studying engineering, and the kind of guy who always knows what to say even when you don't want to hear it. We met up at a diner near campus, the the kind with sticky tables and coffee that tastes like burnt toast. Over greasy fries, I spilled everything: Mom, Jonathan, the money. Larry listened, nodding until I finished. "Man, that's rough," he said, leaning back. "But here's the thing. Your mom's not choosing Jonathan over you. She's stuck in this savior complex. My dad's the same with my uncle, always bailing him out, even when it screws us over." His words stuck with me. Maybe Mom wasn't trying to hurt me, but it didn't make the pain less real. Larry's family had their own drama, and he told me about his dad lending his uncle thousands for a business that went bust. "It's like they can't say no," he said. "But you've got a choice. You can't control your mom, but you can control what you do next." That conversation was a turning point. Larry didn't just sympathize, he pushed me to think strategically, like I was debugging code. He even offered to help me look into scholarships, saying he'd found a few obscure ones for his own tuition. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind me I wasn't alone. The diner wasn't the only place I processed this. Back in my dorm, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of Jonathan. When we were kids, he wasn't always a screw-up. I remembered us building forts in the backyard, him teaching me how to throw a football. He was 16 then, cool in a way I wanted to be. But by high school, he changed, hanging with the wrong crowd, skipping class, getting caught stealing from a gas station. I'd always wondered why he went down that path when he had so much potential. Part of me wanted to believe he could turn it around, but every time I saw his smug grin or another party post, that hope faded. It made me question if family loyalty meant enabling someone who kept hurting you. Another layer of stress hit when I realized Layla was caught in the middle. She's always been Mom's favorite, not in a bad way, just because she's the youngest and knows how to work it. But one night, I caught her crying in her room. "I hate how you and Mom are fighting," she said, hugging her pillow. "And I hate that Jonathan keeps messing everything up." I hadn't realized how much this was weighing on her. She told me she felt guilty for not speaking up when Mom took the money, like she'd let me down. I hugged her, saying it wasn't her fault, but it added another reason to fix this. Not just for me, but for her. I didn't want Layla growing up thinking family meant cleaning up someone else's messes. The next few weeks were a mess. I couldn't focus on classes, and my shifts at the coffee shop felt endless. Money was tighter than ever. Textbooks weren't cheap, and my scholarship only covered part of tuition. I started skipping meals to save cash, living off instant noodles and free coffee from work. But the bigger problem was at home. Mom acted like nothing was wrong, cooking dinner and chatting about her day, while I could barely look at her. Dad stayed out of it as usual, and Layla kept saying, "Just let it go, Alex. It's not worth fighting over." Easy for her to say, she wasn't the one losing everything. Then came another issue: Jonathan. He showed up at our house a week after the bailout, acting like nothing happened. "Hey, cuz," he said, grinning as he sprawled on our couch, eating my leftover pizza. "Thanks for the assist, man. I owe you one." I wanted to punch him. He didn't even know it was my money, or if he did, he didn't care. Mom fussed over him, asking if he was eating enough, while I sat there, fuming. That's when I noticed something else. Jonathan was still partying. He'd post on social media, bars, clubs, late-night drives with his buddies. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't changing. And Mom was blind to it. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about fairness, about why Jonathan's screw-ups always took priority. I started digging into my options. I couldn't undo what Mom did, but I wasn't going to let this ruin me. First, I met with my college's financial aid office. The advisor, a kind woman named Nancy, laid out my options: loans, grants, and work-study programs. I applied for everything I could, but loans scared me. I'd seen friends graduate with debt they'd be paying off for decades. Still, I took out a small one to cover next semester's tuition, vowing to pay it back fast. Next, I confronted Jonathan. I didn't want to. I knew he'd charm his way out of it, but I needed answers. I found him at his apartment, a messy place littered with empty beer cans. "Yo, Alex, what's good?" he said, like we were buddies. I cut to the chase. "You know Mom used my college fund to bail you out, right? 20 grand. That was mine." His face fell, but only for a second. Man, I didn't ask her to do that. She offered. I'll pay it back, I swear. I didn't believe him. He was working odd jobs, barely scraping by. When? I pressed. How? He mumbled something about soon and changed the subject. Classic Jonathan. Back home, things got worse. Mom found out I'd gone to Jonathan and flipped out. Why are you stirring up trouble? She yelled. He's trying to get his life together. Couldn't hold back anymore. He's not, Mom. He's still partying, still acting like nothing's wrong. You threw away my future for someone who doesn't even care. That fight was ugly. Tears, shouting, Layla hiding in her room. Dad finally stepped in, saying, Enough, both of you. But it wasn't enough. I felt like I was losing my family. The breaking point came when I overheard Mom on the phone with my aunt, talking about giving Jonathan more money for rent. Couldn't believe it. She hadn't even apologized for taking my fund. And now this? I knew I had to act, not just for me, but to stop this cycle. I sat down with Layla, who was finally starting to see my side. Mom's not thinking straight, she admitted. But she'll never listen to you if you keep yelling. She was right. I needed a plan, not more fights. I decided to approach this like a coding problem. Break it down, find the root, and build a solution. Step 1 was getting my finances in order. I picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop and applied for a paid internship through my college. It wasn't glamorous, data entry for a local tech company, but it paid better than pouring lattes. Step 2 was talking to Mom, but not like before. No yelling, no accusations. I waited for a quiet evening, when Dad was at work and Layla was out with friends. I made Mom's favorite tea and sat her down. Mom, I started, keeping my voice steady. I'm not mad about Jonathan anymore. I'm hurt. That money was my safety net, and now it's gone. I need to know you see how this affects me. She looked down, twisting her mug in her hands. I didn't mean to hurt you, Alex, she said softly. Jonathan's had it so hard. I thought I was helping. I nodded, even though I disagreed. I get that you love him, but I'm your kid too. I need you to have my back. For the first time, she didn't argue. She just nodded, tears in her eyes. Step 3 was the hardest, dealing with Jonathan. I didn't trust him to pay me back, but I wasn't letting him off the hook. I went back to his place, this time with a plan. Jonathan, I said, you said you'd pay me back. Let's make it real. Sign something, a contract. You owe me 20 grand, and I want a payment plan. He laughed at first, thinking I was joking, but I held my ground. I'm serious. Your family, but this isn't a free pass. To my surprise, he agreed. We wrote up a simple agreement, $200 a month, starting when he got a steady job. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Things didn't magically fix themselves. Jonathan missed his first payment, no surprise, but I kept the pressure on. Mom and I were still rocky, but she started listening more, even apologizing for calling me selfish. I paid off my first semester with the loan and internship money, and I landed a grant for the next one. Layla became my unexpected ally, calling out Mom when she slipped back into Jonathan mode. Dad, well, he stayed dad. Quiet but there when I needed a ride or a bad joke to lighten the mood. Looking back, I realized this mess taught me more than any college class. I learned to stand up for myself, to plan instead of react, and to forgive without forgetting. Mom's heart was in the right place, but I had to draw a line. Jonathan's still a work in progress, and maybe he always will be, but I'm not letting his chaos define my future. So, here's where I'm at. I'm back on track with school, saving every penny, and keeping that contract with Jonathan in my desk drawer. I feel stronger, like I've taken control of my life. But I still wonder, what do you think? Was I too hard on Mom? Should I keep pushing Jonathan to pay up? Or let it go for the sake of family? If you were me, what would you do next? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because honestly, I'm still figuring this out. Life's messy, but I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean giving up on yourself. It means choosing to keep going, no matter what.
Thanks for watching. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and come back for more cool stuff.